I welcome into my gallery this evening the family and friends of the Honourable Jacqui Munro, including Hazel Wolfenden, Bruce Munro, Sue Munro, Ben Davis, Janine Middleton AM, former member and President of the Legislative Council, the Honourable Don Harwin, and Trent Zimmerman, the former member for North Sydney. You are all most welcome. It being 8 p.m, according to resolution of the House this day, proceedings are now interrupted to enable the Honourable Jacqui Munro MLC to make her first speech without any question before the Chair. The member has the call.
Mr. President, honourable members, treasured friends and family, I've entered this place with the circumstances of my endorsement more public than many, a little unorthodox, but perhaps that has always been my fate. It is so good to be here. Before the 2023 election, just 61 women had served in this place. Now our Liberal upper house contains 60% women. It is an enormous honour to be elected here as the New South Wales Liberal Party's first openly LGBTQI woman in Parliament and its youngest in the Legislative Council. I was not selected for these attributes, and although they should be unremarkable, and while I don't like identity politics, these unchangeable parts of myself mean that I can provide a new perspective in this place. As such, the milestone should not go without remark, even if it is, at your indulgence, my own remark. It is not because of the immutable attributes themselves, but because these qualities have shaped the communities I am in, the experiences I've had, the challenges I've faced, and the way that I think about opportunity, freedom, choice, and fairness. An encouragement of diversity of thought and experience is critical to good policy making, which I, of course, hope to contribute to. Tonight, I will share some of myself, where I come from, what I believe in, and my priorities, so that you and the people across New South Wales who I represent might hold me to account. I consider the privilege of this office is one of a vocation, but I am at the mercy of others to judge that. There could be nothing more important than to serve my state and country through the faithful creation of the human laws that govern us. I start by particularly acknowledging my Nana Hazel, here this evening, and she was born on the big block of land she still lives on in Beverly Hills, then called Dumbleton, and she has seen so much change over her 93 years of life so far. When her husband, my grandpa Ken, a British migrant who arrived here alone at 16 on a ship from London, developed that block of land when he married Nana, he quickly earned the ire of neighbours. Grandpa would come home after 12-hour days working on the railways to literally build his family home from the ground up, from foundation to finish, all through the night. A hard worker, he was a staunch Liberal and believed deeply in responsibility and reward for effort. Hazel is the mother of my mother, Beth, who is not here in person this evening. Mum is so much of the reason that I am in this place. The dignity, kindness, and courage that I know can exist in this world is because she embodied it, in living and in dying. Her example is one of the most powerful forces in my life. She is here in me, and in my beautiful little taller sister, Christina, and in all the people in this room and beyond who knew her. I also acknowledge my Scottish heritage taught to me by my father, Bruce. I am of the Clan Munro, whose first chief lived in the 1300s across the Scottish Highlands. Our clan motto on this badge here, dread God. It must be the source of my humility, for it is only God who may look down on and judge the Munros. But a healthy fear of electoral retribution should never be far from a politician's mind. And so, under God, I've pledged my loyalty to the people of New South Wales and Australia to serve in this place. I'm a daughter in a family of army soldiers and naval officers. My paternal great-grandfather, Poppy, fought in the Battle of Beersheba, a critical conquest in Israel, which secured the region for the British forces in 1917. When I visited the town of Beersheba 105 years later, I heard the admiration from the Israeli descendants of that battle for the heroic efforts of the Australians in that parched desert. It reminded me that my place in the world is far-reaching because of the service of my family. My grandpa, Harry Jeffrey Munro, who died just months before I was born, served in the Navy, particularly in World War II, to defend his family, his country, and our freedom. At every military event, I proudly wear his medals to honour his sacrifices and services to our nation. All of these men suffered psychologically in their own ways. Without the labels, they lived with post-traumatic stress disorder, alcoholism, and depression, respecting their service by providing better mental health care treatment to today's armed forces personnel and all people is a mark towards progress and a better society. And I can't round out my brief family history without mentioning a matriarch who must have passed on her enduring sense of optimism to me. Minnie Munro, my great-grandmother, in the Guinness Book of Records for being the oldest woman to marry. At 103, she tied the knot to a man 2 decades her junior. Unfortunately, he passed away first. She became twice widowed, but in love and saying something like Carpe Diem, Minnie walked down the aisle and gave her heart to that man until she passed at 105. If we are all a product of our history and circumstance, and our DNA holds the imprints of the lives of our ancestors, I believe I am fortunate to have been embedded with a sense that there is good to defend in the world and hope to generate through worthy action. I'm thankful to have grown up in Little Bonnet Bay in the Sutherland Shire, surrounded by the beaches and the bushland. We also had a family farm in Biggar, a tiny town between Goulburn and Cowra, riding horses and running amok in our superfine merino wool country. I'm lucky also to have lived briefly in the snowy mountains and taught people how to ski on the other side of the world. I've travelled widely throughout Europe and seen the ravages and successes of political turmoil. I'm the proud product of an academically selective public school education. I have been absolutely blessed with the most beautiful mates, particularly the incredible group of women from Caringbah High School, many of whom are here tonight. They are loving mothers, carers, sisters, daughters, wives, and friends before anything else. You have given me the example of what is good and right more than each of you could know. After school, Manning Bar and Herman's at the University of Sydney became my playgrounds. I'm the first woman in my family to attend university. I enjoyed being in Sud's productions like the accidental comedy The Term of His Natural Life, playing saxophone for the Jazz Sock Big Band and campaigning for Friends and Allies for SRC and Oniswa. And I'm sure I ended up in those sandstone walls because of seeing my dad, Bruce, graduate in the Great Hall when I was 10. He was a mature-age student, the first of his family to attend university, received a master's in logistics management to bolster his expertise in a successful business career. I hope that my father's great extroversion, he is such a natural entertainer, connector, learner and leader, has stood me in good stead. He continues to inspire me with his unbridled enthusiasm for life. And how grateful I am that my university attendance coincided with that of a group of people so equally enlivened by a joie de vivre, impassioned by political engagement and willingness to work together in sometimes ridiculous pursuits. Many of these wonderful people are here tonight and continue to work in service of the political process, some beside me, some across the chamber, others in the press gallery, and many beyond. We all had a sense that ideas could be made real, and that there was something bigger to be a part of and to contribute to. Many of us fought a university takeover and kept the University of Sydney Union and its revenue-generating operations in student hands. I hear it's happening again today, and I urge total focus to retain the USU's independence. It is a legacy from 1874. At 21, I ran for the USU Board of Directors with the slogan, "Let's go Munro." I felt it was electorally advantageous to masculinise myself by using my surname. I acknowledge the many people in the gallery tonight who have been the heart and soul of campaigns with me from then until today. It was 2011, and with the first flushes of political success, I took a call on Science Road, next to home building my new USU office, and I was the first one to be told that by mum that she had cancer. So in between St George Hospital visits and doctor's appointments, my sister and I tried to retain a sense of normalcy. It's what Mum wanted. We were told by medical staff after 3 months of chemo and radiotherapy that the worst was coming sooner rather than later, and we were grateful that she held on for a final Christmas. She insisted on eating well, pumping weights, and joking with us until the end. She didn't want a round-the-world adventure in those final months. She wanted to sit at home amongst the gum trees with the laughing kookaburras overlooking the Woronora River. She had visitors and privately raged and was helpless, but above all, she lived her values, selfless and stoic. This courageous, practical and loving woman threw a party for herself before she died. Beth didn't like the idea that all her loved ones would get around together without her at a funeral when she was gone. And always thinking of others, she raised thousands of dollars for Alzheimer's Australia, which is now Dementia Australia, in the name of Grandpa at that party. Friends, gathered over 5.5 decades, joined Mum to celebrate life with her one last time. The impact of those long yet all too short months led to the most destructive and redemptive parts of my life. I know what it is to feel powerless and to ask for help when logic fails. It can happen to all of us. Every year since she passed, my sister and I have been invited by Como Public School to present the Beth Munro Environmental Award at their annual presentation night. It is such an honour to recognise her contribution to the community in this way. Mum's stoicism has been a source of great strength and inspiration. Today I call myself somewhat of an adherent to the Stoic philosophy, espoused by Epictetus, Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, to maintain a healthy mind and perspective amidst the cut and thrust of politics. And perhaps it was inevitable when the Bonnet Bay Primary School motto, learn to grow, grow to learn, so clearly mirrors Seneca's, as long as you live, keep learning to live. Fundamentally, the need to take personal responsibility for one's own mind and actions, to act in virtue and in service to achieve happiness, and to accept the fates that befall us without rancour are tools that are required to maintain a fulfilling political life. Perhaps it would not seem so possible without seeing Mum's dignity and grace through the hardest of times. But before I needed philosophy, I found a calling. And although I had been praising Prime Minister Howard in Facebook statuses since high school because I am extremely cool, it wasn't until after my first successful student election, again very cool, that I seriously considered joining the Liberal Party, the coolest. Being a political nerd since high school, it troubled me greatly that one of our two major political parties valued compliance over individual liberty, with the Labor Party mandating that their MPs would be kicked out if they voted against the party's collective decision, even if their communities or their own conscience desired otherwise. It didn't make sense to me that in a liberal democracy, a nation like ours, the value of an individual's right and responsibility to contribute in the Parliament as elected by the people was stripped away. And while union membership is 11.7% of employees in New South Wales, with the largest group of that membership identifying as professional workers, union organisations formally control half of the Labor Party, and certainly a majority when you consider the other half is full of union members. Now, please don't misunderstand me. Unions have a place in our society, but I do not believe that it is their place to control one of Australia's parties of government. Part of my role in this chamber is to ensure that all people are fairly represented and that the interests of union officials do not go unchallenged. On the other hand, the Liberal Party's respect for individual liberty, the work towards a lean government that minimises interference in our daily lives and maximises individual and private sector initiative, as outlined in our party's We Believe statement, and the talent of its fine representatives, many of them here tonight, it hooked me. Shortly after my election to the USU and the Liberal landslide of the 2011 election, I volunteered for 2 days in the office of Mark Speakman, new member for Cronulla, before he offered me a job. I was fortunate to have the encouragement of the fresh-faced member for Hornsby, Matt Keane. Having politicians and experienced political actors mentor young people who want to make a difference in government and society is so important. My door is always open for young people, and particularly young women who want to know more and get involved in political life. And I acknowledge the incredible impact of the young Liberals who drive this work, and their president, Dimitri Palmer, is here with us this evening. I'm a classical Liberal in the traditions of Locke, Smith, Burke and Menzies. I hold the belief that individual responsibility and action are at the heart of a necessarily complex but crucially good society. We achieve it through what Hume called the dissoluble chain of our togetherness, linking industry, knowledge, and humanity for progress. To foster freedom for progress, political structures should support the opportunity for choice in all these areas. Freedom of choice, supported by individual empowerment, results in the best outcomes for us all. It is the most sustainable way to act over time. In my view, there is no better way to seek progress, and these principles have lifted millions, billions out of poverty. It is fundamental to the UN's Declaration of Human Rights, the empowerment of the individual to create positive change and progress without recourse to undue power. Good law protects the vulnerable from the unscrupulous and encourages free enterprise and empowerment. In Menzies' words, the greatest element in a strong people is a fierce independence of spirit. This is the only real freedom, and it has its corollary in brave acceptance of unclouded individual responsibility. The joy, the value, the beauty, and the potential of each and every individual person to live freely amongst fellows and to find meaning in life in the way they choose. That free expression is captured in music and art, science and innovation, family and friends, and, yes, at its best, in politics. That is the spirit of our society that can generate and exude when every individual member is supported to find it within themselves. In favouring liberty, I encourage considered ethics and personal responsibilities as the best way to reduce reliance on legislation to regulate behaviour. And I am, as economist Michael Munger would put it, a directionalist rather than a destinationalist. I am not a revolutionary. I see sustainable progress in society as the broad agreement and movement of people through the Overton window. And I'm loath to quote Slavoj Žižek, but his question, what happens the day after the revolution, remains relevant in times of political uncertainty. The conservative in me seeks to maintain strong institutions based outside of government structures wherever possible. Volunteer organisations like One Meal It Makes a Difference, where I served on the board with a group of people organising hot homemade meals to serve and to connect to those in need across Greater Sydney. To sporting organisations like OzTag and Netball that connect families and friends while promoting a healthy lifestyle. We should not resort to government solutions for all sources of connection and support. A caring society is also at the heart of conservative values, where institutions like family and marriage foster connection, comfort, and a natural safety net. Though we know families can be far from perfect, it is about fostering a society that has the capacity to progress by developing healthier relationships based on respect for and responsibility of the individual. And where these fail, there is a natural role for government, on behalf of a caring society, to support people back to independence if possible and to comfort where necessary. I honour the cornerstone of our society, our parliamentary democracy, by protecting it fiercely. It is a system that has developed slowly over millennia to better serve its people and will no doubt continue to do so. My apologies for the apparent self-interest and perhaps for the roast earlier, but as a good friend says, if you're not going to vote Liberal, vote Labor. The strength and stability of a two-party system with our almost unique and wonderful compulsory voting system delivers outcomes that should allow us to find society's core values through our policies. Unfortunately, there are many political systems in the world that seek to overthrow the primacy of the individual and our representative approach to governance. They deny a person a democratic vote for a governing body, oppress expression of thought, and dictate the operations of an economy and a society, restricting choice. These authoritarian and communist political regimes exist at the expense of their citizens, not to serve them, but to use them. We must be vigilant in our defence against these systems of power. To bolster institutions, they must also be fit for a modern world. I was humbled to be involved in the marriage equality campaign and acknowledge the people in this room tonight who are such an important part of that, including Alex Greenwich MP here this evening. Paul Ritchie, speechwriter for Liberal Prime Ministers including Tony Abbott and Scott Morrison, articulated it best. In making marriage available to all couples, he knew that more committed families, not fewer, were better for our children and our communities. And who would value the institution of marriage more than those to whom it had been denied? It was a conservative institution made stronger through expansion. I believe it is vital that our party's narrative reflects the great work it has done for Australians to enable them to live more freely. In the last 10 years alone, the Liberals amended the law to allow historic gay and lesbian offences to be abolished. The Liberals abolished the gay panic defence for violent crimes. The Liberals put PrEP on the PBS, and the Liberals delivered the first official government apologies to the 78ers. And though not perfect, and really there is no such thing in politics, there are also examples of great improvements for Aboriginal Australians because of courageous Liberal politicians. Harold Holt and the Liberal Party presided over a successful referendum in 1967 to count Aboriginal people in the census, and the passing of the Land Rights Act in 1977 under Fraser, with the support of Australia's first Aboriginal member of the Commonwealth Parliament, Liberal Senator Neville Bonner, it was an enormous feat of political will. More recently in New South Wales, the criminalisation of coercive control to help victim survivors escape abuse before they are murdered, the introduction of renewable energy zones to sustainably power our homes and our economy for the future, the introduction of optional land tax. These are the types of policies that will drive our state forward as a safer, more prosperous and more optimistic place to live. And underpinning all our policy programs must be a strong economy to support those in need. It is why I will always try to encourage wealth creators, entrepreneurs and small business people, not because they have lobbied me, not because they will go on strike if I don't, not because they will threaten to stop funding my political campaigns, but precisely because they won't do these things. Their contribution to our state is based on hard-working, responsibility-driven Liberal values. These are the people working to provide for their families, to provide for themselves, to save for a home, to invest back in their businesses. Currently, 99.8% of businesses in Australia are considered small or medium, and in New South Wales alone, 1.8 million people are employed by small business, accounting for 45% of the New South Wales private sector workforce. I again hark back to Menzies, who said, "Our first impulse is always to seek the private enterprise answer to help individuals to help themselves, to create a climate, economic, social, industrial, favourable to their activity and grow it." These are the people who provide us with the goods and services every day, pay their taxes and create jobs for fellow Australians that we all need. And I've worked in one of those small businesses in public relations and campaigns. I have witnessed the grit, drive and selflessness that it took those founders to persevere through the pandemic while keeping their employees on the books. JobKeeper helped. And they emerged more determined than ever. I'm delighted to say that they are thriving today with numerous international awards recognising their talented contribution to public policy discourse and advocacy. That is the raw spirit of the Australian small business person. And coming from a professional career in PR, comms and public affairs, I know that no matter how good your policy is or how good the cause seems, without the right audience, messaging and communicator, it risks going nowhere. Tim Wilson, former member for Goldstein, wrote in his recent book, The Social Contract, that society struggles when resentment becomes so great that differing parties no longer share common interest. Good communication aims to get us to that common interest. In outlining some vision for what New South Wales can be, I hope that there are some common interests you can find within it. A rich and biodiverse environment where the complexity and fragility of ecosystems is preserved. Generosity and goodwill offered to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as they seek power over their destiny. A productive economy driven by private enterprise, innovation, competition, collaboration and determination. A place where individual talents, expressions and contributions are valued, from apprentices to investors, musicians to scientists. A thriving space industry. The capacity for people to live securely in their own home and be mobile when they choose. And finally, a society where in-person interaction is prioritised. Because although the digital world gives us so much, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that can replace our deep animal longing and positive response to close physical and psychological proximity. I will briefly expand on a few of these areas before speaking more specifically about housing. I acknowledge that this, Australia's oldest parliament, was established on Gadigal land. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I note the message stick that inhabits this place. Symbolism matters. And so does the tangible equality of opportunity denied to so many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. I will sit here more easily when Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are not condemned from birth in their ancestral home to lifespans a full decade shorter on average than non-Aboriginals. and I will be deeply relieved when, in that life, they have not been involved in far greater instances of racism, violence, alcoholism and drug addiction, incarceration, and a range of other health disorders, from the devastating effects of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder from the beginning of life to kidney disease by the end. We must have the courage to listen to the torment of powerlessness and heed the call for responsibility through the voice. Addressing flagging productivity is crucial if we are to maintain our valuable AAA credit rating with a stable outlook. Australians are facing economic uncertainty after almost 3 decades of uninterrupted economic growth, and improving productivity is our key to success. I commend the work of the New South Wales Productivity Commissioner, Peter Acterstrat. It was a role created by former Liberal Treasurer Dominic Perrottet, who has set out a range of regulatory and legislative reforms that can be introduced in this Parliament to promote productivity, including reforming the payroll tax system, improving local government accountability, harmonising apprenticeship and trade qualifications across the country, and delivering a comprehensive review of the New South Wales planning system to fix delay and uncertainty in the planning process. On tax reform, encouraging entrepreneurship and a mindset that failure comes with its own success can be achieved with help from a reform of our taxation system. It includes eliminating the payroll tax burden for businesses in operation for 5 years or less, investigating the waiving of payroll tax for businesses paying $5 million or less in wages, and the introduction of a productive land use tax incentive. We must also have an honest and public conversation about GST. For improved fiscal efficiency and effectiveness, which Ken Henry should be around to see updated. It took John Howard a quarter of a century from first introducing the idea of a GST to its wide public acceptance and introduction to the Commonwealth Parliament. While a federal tax, GST accounts for around 11% of our state's revenue, and it's subject to serious fluctuations, particularly as we navigate higher interest rates and inflation with reduced spending. We have the responsibility to lead this conversation. Fixing our messy apprenticeship system is an important part of our economic growth, and my work with the Global Apprenticeship Network Australia has particularly alerted me to the possibilities and problems in the current system. Apprentices in rural and regional New South Wales should also be supported, and I acknowledge my coalition colleagues who are fighting to do just that. In fostering good human connections, I want to remind people of the value of art and play. These are the things I was proud to fight for through the Keep Sydney Open movement. For CBDs in particular, with increases in apartment living, it is vital that true 24-hour economies are encouraged. They are made lively because of the people who choose to live, perform, create, trade and travel in a stimulating global city. Whether it's techno, jazz or drum and bass, visual art, poetry, dance, restaurateurs, tailors and bankers, the free flow of ideas and trade. And in saying all of this, I remind myself that one of the most challenging aspects of politics is prioritisation. I've seen that a focused mind achieves results in politics, and in that spirit, I focus my remaining minutes on housing. Being able to afford a home is not a dream that we should be giving up on. As legislators, we must take on the responsibility of fixing this crisis, not only for renters, but for home buyers too. The psychological advantage of a stable home cannot be understated. That a person and a family can choose to live in their desired home and work towards ownership as a goal. It might be a place where they can take a salty morning dip or wake up where the freshest air is breathed or eschew sleep in the most vibrant city. To take their kids out to the local park with other families or invite their friends over to play in their backyard instead. We know that housing has become an asset class more than a human necessity. In The Forgotten People, Menzies spoke of homes material, human and spiritual. Without homes material, it is more challenging to attain the rest. The Liberals risk losing a political movement and a generation of inspired actors if we do not ingrain the idea that reward for effort is real and felt, not just said. When people feel as though their hard work will not set them apart or allow them to achieve their dreams, they will turn to government for support. It is a natural feeling. We are sleepwalking into a society of great Australian dreams because its reality seems unattainable. As a politician in opposition, it is my responsibility to hold the Labor government to account, but in this House, it is expected that we work together to seek reform, and I hope to do that. And the scale of this problem will not be solved by more public housing. It is an unsustainable route entirely. The current housing waitlist sits at over 50,000 people, over a third of the number of people already in government housing. It is estimated that 45,000 new homes will be required to be built every year for the next 20 years to house New South Wales' growing population. While in 2018, almost 70,000 dwellings were added to the housing stock in a year, in 2021, we continue a downward trend, seeing only 40,000 homes added. There must be capacity for more private investment to step in, with government required to work with developers to address this chronic shortage. They are not insurmountable challenges that we face. And to address the cost of housing, we must do all we can to boost supply. And I offer 10 changes to ease the cost of housing. Work on these could begin tomorrow. 1, retain coalition legislation that allows buyers to choose to replace transfer or stamp duty with land tax, a policy that Treasury officials and economists have been calling for decades. 2, reduce application costs associated with building compliance for secondary dwellings on a single property. 3, extend long-term rentals to 12 months without DA approvals using existing state registration approval processes. Currently, there is a 3-month limit. 4, develop an accurate short-term rental accommodation register that puts enforced limits on non-hosted short-term rental properties. 5, increase density and height limits in the Sydney CBD and surrounds, particularly in Woolloomooloo, with infill development prioritised. 6, release state-owned land. 7, encourage banks to lend for dwellings under 40 metres squared. 8, undertake an accurate audit of vacant residential properties across the state. 9, introduce land use incentives to develop properties for housing, including consideration of a vacancy and dilapidation tax. 10, identify and report on 5 to 20-year housing targets by local government areas. I thank the Liberal Party, its staff, led so faithfully by our outgoing and indefatigable State Treasurer, Chris Stone. In 2019, I ran for the seat of Sydney, and I hope she won't mind me saying this, but Tanya Plibersek whispered in my ear after I'd given an answer at Glebe Town Hall, which is a pretty tough crowd for a Liberal, and she told me that I'd given a good answer because I was speaking about the importance of members in our Liberal Party and the value, the party's character being inextricably linked to the characteristics of the totality of its membership. The Liberal Party will always be a party of individuals who have chosen to come together in service of their values and the community. And the former member for Coogee, Bruce Notley-Smith, our state's first openly gay member in the Legislative Assembly, said to me when I was a young Liberal, he said something I would never forget. When I joined the Liberal Party, yes, I became a part of it, but the party became a little bit more like me. In that spirit, I cannot finish without acknowledging the Liberal women in my life who are absolute powerhouses. There are many, too many to name. The New South Wales Liberal Women's Council is a force to be reckoned with. The best of them are determined, diverse and whip-smart, and these Liberal women are deserving of seats in Parliament because they are the best chances our country has to succeed. The Honourable Natalie Ward, the Honourable Aileen McDonald, Sally Betts, Senator Maria Kovacic, and founder of Hilmer's Network, Charlotte Mortlock, have shown me the very great strengths in women for women. Thank you to Matthew John Keane, who has encouraged me to persevere and prevail in speaking up for our values, because this work is not about us, it is about what we can do to serve. And James Wallace, who is a humble servant of the Liberal Party and a formidable political force. Deep thanks to my patient and loving family, to Dad, my beautiful and kind stepmum Sue, brave Christina, most amazing Ben. I would be nowhere without you and without your love and support. A final word from Epictetus. He said, "For as the material for the carpenter is wood, and that of the statuary bronze, so the subject matter of the art of living is each person's own life." I extend the metaphor to say politics is the material of politicians. I will use all the tools I can to improve the politics and policies of this place for the benefit of the people of New South Wales to the very best of my ability. Thank you.